Correct. When I die, put the realest on my headstone. Until then, it's Porsche GT two-tone. Bad chick on my
Hey,
side.
Hi, Efe.
How are you today?
I'm so good, thank you.
So, welcome to my show. So, this is the going to be the 11th episode with you. I'm really happy to have you here.
Thank you so
So, you
much.
have a really interesting story. So, why don't you start telling about yourself to us a little bit, and then we go to the story slowly.
Okay, I would say that my story is a very long story, so I'll try to reduce it a little bit because I think what you're talking about is mainly the part about the fact that I was born in Amsterdam.
Yes.
But that somehow I ended up in Turkey for a very long time, right? So, and now I'm back here again in the Netherlands. So that is quite an interesting kind of journey. I think most people seem quite surprised when I tell them. Especially now that I'm back in the Netherlands, people kind of assume I've always been here all my life. And then at some stage, generally, it comes up during conversation of the fact that I was away for about 25 years. And then they go, how is that possible?
Yeah.
And why did you come back? And why did you go there?
Exactly.
And,
these were my questions as well.
Yeah, I get a lot of mixed comments from people. A lot of people say to me, why did you leave Turkey? I mean, it's a lovely country and it's so sunny all the time. And why would you come back to grey Holland? And I also get people that say, oh, yeah, I couldn't imagine living in Turkey. You know, I love Holland and I'm not surprised that you've come back. But yeah, no. So I ended up going to Turkey for the first time when I was about 18. So I was fairly young at the time, and it was on a holiday, and I got introduced to Turkey by a good friend of mine who purchased a property in Turkey in a very tiny village called Dalyan. Dalyan Muğla, which Turkish people generally tend to know. Dutch people don't know so very often. And literally from the moment I kind of stepped foot in that tiny little village.
So maybe you can tell us where is Dalyan is located actually, which part of Turkey?
Okay, so it's the southwest coast of Turkey.
Yeah, Aegean side.
Aegean side, yeah. They call it the Turkish Riviera.
Yeah.
So it's quite a beautiful area. I would say it's even more pretty than the French Riviera. More pretty than most places I've seen in Europe, to be honest with you, when it comes to how clean and how beautiful the sea is and the little villages kind of dotted on the coast. It's got great nature, a very calm, peaceful way of living in general. In the area where I was located, a lot of nature, so a lot of animals as well, mountains, rivers, turtles, sea turtles.
Yeah.
Anything
it's also
you can
famous
think
with
of.
the sea turtles.
It's very famous for the sea turtles, yes. So, yeah, the moment I kind of arrived there, something within my soul really clicked. It was kind of like I'd come home, which is very strange.
Yeah.
Right?
It is really amazing to feel that connection with a particular place.
Yeah, I'd never kind of experienced anything like that before. So I traveled before, so it wasn't my first travel. And at the moment where I felt something within my body that it literally kind of clicked and connected with the place.
Wow.
And I hadn't spoken to anyone. I hadn't seen any local people. I hadn't seen much of the place apart from literally arriving from the airport to Dalyan, seeing all the mountains, kind of the smell in the air. It was spring at the time, you know, kind of the jasmine in the air, kind of the orange flowers that you smell that time of year. Seeing kind of little cows and sheep walking around on big fields of land and the wildflowers. Something just kind of really touched me.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't that I kind of knew, oh, this is a place where I want to live, but I just felt very much at home immediately.
Yeah.
And I didn't really think about it very long. I just kind of enjoyed the holiday. We were there for a couple of weeks. And it really did change the idea I had about Turkey, because before I came to Dalyan on holiday, I very much, like a lot of people, I would say probably in those days, especially from Amsterdam, had some ideas about what Turkey was, maybe not always positive.
Sure.
And I would say that I didn't really have an opinion on Turkey, but I also wasn't super keen on going to Turkey. But because my friend had bought a property there and he was like, oh, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
Come, it's beautiful. You'll love it. I kind of got persuaded to go and explore. And he was absolutely right. So, yeah, totally loved it. Went back, of course, to Amsterdam. Where I had my work and I was studying and doing all sorts of things. And
You were living back in Amsterdam back then?
yeah.
Okay.
So I was born and raised in Amsterdam. So I'm really, really from Amsterdam. My family is still here. And
I never left the city of Amsterdam when you were living in the Netherlands, I think.
no, I would say I was definitely not one of these people that was exploring other places around the Netherlands. I think there's a certain type of breed of people in Amsterdam, especially from my generation, that didn't explore outside of Amsterdam so much because they think Amsterdam is the best place in the world. I think nowadays more people in Amsterdam are more open to exploring other places, of course. But back in those days, there were quite a few people like me as well. Obviously, after my visit to Dalian, I had a very different vision on that. I still loved Amsterdam, but I felt that was not necessarily going to be the place that I was going to live for the rest of my life anymore. Saying that, I also did not expect that I was going to move to Turkey at any point.
Yeah.
But I would say that my first travels after going to Dalian ended up going to London. I lived in London for quite a couple of years, almost 8 years. But even when I was in London, I kept going backwards and forwards to Dalian.
Oh,
So it kept kind of calling me back for some reason. Now, I think it's worth kind of saying that Dalian is a very, very small, tiny village. So it's not like it's a big city. There's lots to do or anything like that. But I think the pace of life that you have there, which is very different, of course, from Amsterdam, but also very different from London, very much resonated with me.
yeah.
So, you know, it was also maybe the sense of that in a small place like that, people don't, although they value money, it's not the most important commodity in the world.
Yeah.
It's much more about kind of community, friendships, spending quality time together, enjoying life, enjoying food, growing your own food, you know, all these kind of things. So, I think that very much resonated with me because obviously, although I would say that when you grow up in Amsterdam, I don't think you grow up in a very materialistic community or world. It's of course very different to like a Turkish village.
Of course.
So
no doubt about that.
Yeah. So I did end up going backwards and forwards quite a lot. And I did at one point think, okay, this is a place where I would like to spend some more time. Maybe at some stage I'll build a house here and little village house in like a field. And so I did kind of dream about it, but didn't make any specific plans until a moment where I decided to end what I was doing in the UK, in London, and decided to come back to the Netherlands, come back to Amsterdam. I had a really good job offer that came in that got me very excited to go back to Amsterdam and said yes to the offer, organized the house here, got everything ready, had packed up my house in London, and then decided to have a little bit of a holiday in Dalian before I would move back to Amsterdam. And went there on holiday. And then basically something inside me said, you're not supposed to go to Amsterdam at all. You're supposed to stay here. And it was very odd because at no point did I think, okay, what am I going to do in this village, right? I've come from London, rat race. You're like busy all the time. I'd built a very successful company with some partners. We opened up 5 restaurants and mobile catering. Very much enjoyed what I was doing. Was looking to do something similar back here in the Netherlands. However, this little voice inside me said,
No.
you're not going to do that.
Yeah.
So I ended up canceling my ticket back to Amsterdam, canceling my house and canceling my contract.
Yeah.
And staying in Dalian and not actually being entirely sure what I was going to do there. I would say that the majority of people around me thought I was absolutely insane. And they literally told me, like, you're absolutely insane. What are you doing
I don't
in
think this is
village?
insane, but like what I'm curious about is kind of like, how did you connect with that voice inside of you? Because the whole podcast thing is just also started inside of a voice inside of me. They just told me the same thing, like, you got to do this.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to understand. Like, how did you connect yourself with that voice? Because this is complete gut feeling. And how did you show some sort of like, courage to follow your gut feeling? Because it's a really important thing to do, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I've always been very much in touch with my soul and what my gut feeling is trying to tell me. And I think that for a very long period of time, even a little bit still nowadays, I have been a workaholic.
Yeah.
And I kind of keep that voice, or I used to keep that voice very quiet. But I think every time I would go to Dalian and you leave work behind and you leave all the stresses of day-to-day life behind, I think you have more space to listen to that voice.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the things that I appreciated so much about Dalian, because it gave me the space to have a different perspective on my life and what I was doing, and not being in this workaholic / automatic pilot mode. Now, I have also learned many, many years ago, I don't know if this is true, yes or not, but have you ever heard of ley lines?
Ley lights?
Yeah, so there are people that believe that the Earth has a magnetic field around it
Oh, yeah.
with lines that cross one another.
Oh, okay.
And so apparently on the points where lines cross each other, the energy is the Earth energy, but also cosmic energy is very strong. And apparently Dalian is located on one of these cross points.
Okay.
So to me, that makes a lot of sense, knowing what I know now. But if you don't believe that, then maybe you think, that's a load of rubbish. That could be
No, I don't
possible.
think that's complete rubbish. But I'm like, I have no idea about that. Like I also believe in energies and stuff like that. But like some specific point, the energy of the specific point is gonna touch me. I'm not really sure about it. But please go on. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have learned over the years that there's a lot of people like shamans and people that are more into like a spiritual way of living that come to Dalian specifically for the energy.
Oh.
So apparently it's a very healing place. I would agree with that, but again, I think people have different experiences with that.
I didn't know that. Not really sure, but Turks are before Islam, they were shamans. You know that, right?
Yeah,
They were
yeah.
all believing in earth and weather and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I ended up being back in Dalian for some reason, not entirely sure what I was doing there, how long I was going to stay there, what I was going to do for money. Of course, I had a little buffer that I'd saved up, so I wasn't in immediate need of money, but I was very much someone, and still very much am someone that likes to be productive, likes to create things. And so I did kind of think, well, what am I going to do here?
Yeah.
It's a tiny little village, I don't speak the language.
Yeah.
I don't even know how long I want to stay here. And as it so seems, I ended up meeting someone there, fell very much in love, had a real kind of proper love story, and ended up getting married there. And then, of course, decided to stay.
Yeah.
So my life did take a little bit of a different turn from then
That's
on.
a really different turn. That's like
Yes, a
not
very different turn.
yeah, 108 degrees
Yeah,
different turn. Yeah.
yeah. And I would say that even in the beginning years of like, meeting my then husband and being and living there and being married, I did very often question, what am I doing here? Because although I love the place,
What the fuck am I doing?
yeah, it's one thing to go to a place, a tiny village, and like have a
Yeah.
holiday. It's a completely different thing to
Yeah.
kind of go and live there, especially if you're used to, the hustle and bustle of kind
Yeah.
of London or Amsterdam. You don't have that there.
No.
I would say the mentality is, of course, very different.
Yeah.
Me as a European woman
Yeah.
coming into a tiny village where you look very different, you
Yeah.
behave very different.
Yeah.
I would say that a lot of the local people kind of expect you to try to fit in with them and behave exactly as them.
Yeah.
That's not really in my character.
Yeah.
So that was never going to happen.
Yeah.
It took quite some time, I think, for me to get used to living there.
Yeah.
And
So-
also the mentality.
Yeah, so why don't you tell us about that a little bit? So how, like, I can only imagine it's all started with looks, right?
Yeah.
Like, who the hell is she doing here?
Yeah, I think what I noticed was that a lot of people were very friendly to me from the beginning, not always for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And I think I was fairly naive, thinking that when people are nice to you, they are genuinely nice to you. And I think I very quickly learned that that is not necessarily the case. So there was a lot of, definitely a lot of niceness that comes your way as a foreign woman living in a tiny Turkish village.
Yeah.
And most of it tends to be around, they're trying to figure out, can I benefit from you in any way?
Sure.
Do
Not
you have
surprised at all.
yeah,
Yeah.
do you have any gossip for me that I
Yeah.
can potentially pass on to someone else?
Yeah.
And that just a genuine kind of curiosity, like why would you come and live here? Kind of, why? And this is one of the main questions I used to get a lot because I think that I think a lot of people in that area, it's their dream to go and live abroad. It's their dream to go and live in a place like Amsterdam. So a lot of people could not understand why I would choose to come and live in this village that a lot of people would dream to get out of.
Yeah.
And to do that voluntarily, not forced in any way.
Yeah, but I think it's a really fair question. So I'm also thinking, exactly. So why would you leave your, current environment? Because you're born in a city. So I really cannot imagine myself. I'm from Istanbul, right? Like I really cannot imagine myself living in a village. I can only do it 10 days, maybe maximum, and I would just, I need to get out of here as soon as possible. Even if it's the most beautiful sea or sun or whatever that is, I couldn't care less.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the hassle because it's somewhere in my soul, like ingrained. But with you, it's something is different.
Yeah, I don't have that same feeling. So I can really appreciate peace and quiet and calmness. I especially noticed that during the pandemic when I was in Dalian.
Yeah.
And you were very much in your house and by yourself all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people, it drove a lot of people nearly insane. Yeah, it didn't do that for me. I was quite happy to like be on my own, be surrounded by nature, grow my vegetables and, make new recipes every day with new things that I was growing or that I found.
But I'm just thinking out loud for a second. So like, okay, so vegetables are growing, but not in a day. They're growing in
No. I mean, like, I'm not saying they grow in a day. It takes quite some time.
Yeah. You're still lonely. I mean, they don't talk to you. So, so it's kind of, but like they're growing, but come on, man. It's like 4 months, I'm still growing. Like how did you manage that? It's really, really tough thing to do, in my opinion.
I would say that I also, during that period, like I think many other people, was on video calls with a lot of my friends
Yeah.
a lot of the time,
Yeah.
just to kind of make some sense out of like the absurdity that was going on around the world,
Yeah.
and catching up on what is happening in which country.
Yeah.
Also, maybe just, trying to catch a glimpse of, what's going to happen, and, all the conspiracy theories that were going around.
Yeah. They were really popular.
Yeah. But for me, I mean, I had a fairly nice routine of, waking up with my coffee in the morning, which is still a routine I have to this day. It's very important for me to like wake up with my coffee in the morning. Yeah. But yeah, having I'm someone that loves to work out. So I would go for a run in the mountains.
Yeah.
You look after the garden, have some dogs there, look after your dogs. I think I've kind of forgotten to mention that in the meantime, I've also had a daughter who is now 16, but during the pandemic, she was about 12. So the homeschooling took up some of my time, of course, as well. And I think, with everything that was going on in the place I was living, the supermarkets there are not like the supermarkets here in the Netherlands. You cannot buy everything. It's very limited what you can buy. So you end up making a lot of things yourself. You make your own bread, you make your own yogurt, you make your own granola. It takes a lot of time. So
You made your own granola?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't know that you could do your own granola.
It's super easy. Yeah.
Okay.
Super easy.
No, I believe you. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
I'll give you a recipe.
Yes.
But yeah, just, every week making a different batch of granola with like different ingredients. And so, yeah, no, I was fairly happy during the pandemic, to be honest with you. But I also have to say that that being there in Turkey, I also realized during the pandemic that it was not the place for me to necessarily grow old and to stay longer than I'd already been there. So a little bit, maybe it's good to also take you through the bit from kind of just arriving in Dalian to, ending up in the pandemic.
Yeah.
So when I just came to Dalian and, got married and decided to really be there and stay there and integrate as much as possible, one of the things that I think has driven me and has also kept me very happy there for a long time is building some businesses there. I've always known I'm not someone to sit still or sit at home and be a housewife. So for me to kind of look at Dalian and see, okay, this is what I think this place needs, because Dalian is a tiny village, as I've said. It's a fishing village. It has some tourism, not a huge amount of tourism. It's because it's fairly small. It doesn't have the 5-star luxury, all-inclusive resort hotels, etc. It requires a certain type of tourist that can appreciate the smallness of it, the quaintness of it, the beauty of it, also the uniqueness of it, which means that tourism has its ups and downs there. So I think I would say that for the first 2 years, I really tried to boost tourism as much as I could by reaching out to my network and trying to get them enthusiastic for coming out to Dalian. Because, of course, a place like Dalian, it exists on summer tourism, which is only a couple of months when you think about it. And then there's a very long winter in which no one actually generates any money. So there's a lot of farmers that live there, and they do their farming in the winter, and they survive year on year. They survive, but they're not necessarily all thriving or like building up any wealth. They're always going through the same cycle, and I still believe that Dalian has a lot of potential. Thankfully, it's grown a lot, but it still has this potential to attract a lot more people. And of course, for the local people, that's very good because that is the way they earn their money, right? So, and I think that when I came to Dalian, I very much noticed that it's a beautiful place, but most of the people that ran businesses there weren't necessarily people that had ever stepped out of Dalian or gone to a big city and had vision to create something beautiful there.
Yes.
So I kind of did my best to whichever business I set up. And I also set up a collective for local people, especially women, that wanted to learn more about running a business and also learn more about different ways to do that or different ways to improve their business or their business skill, etc. So I was very motivated to kind of do something good for the place.
That's super cool idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did that. It wasn't always easy because being a foreign woman and taking that kind of initiative meant that not a lot, but I would say some of the powerful local men, older men, were not very happy with me at all. Because I was quite outspoken, not rude in any way, but quite outspoken in my views. And so I did get into trouble quite a few times, I would say.
I can only imagine the conversations between you.
Yeah, and this was
and
when I
Dalia.
couldn't speak Turkish yet.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
it was
How did you express it in English? Okay.
broken Turkish, I would say. I mean, I knew words. I was learning as, you learn as you get along. But they were very interesting conversations. Let's put it that way. But so I really, I think looking back, a lot of the things that I built there and that I created there are still flourishing. I know I touched a lot of people's lives with the things that I did.
Of course.
I'm by no means a saint, but I definitely felt that I did my best in trying to give back to the community there as much as I could.
I'm 100% sure of it.
And so it's still, this place still holds a very big piece of my heart, even though I don't live there permanently anymore.
Yeah.
Coming back to kind of the pandemic and, coming to the realization of this is not a place that I necessarily want to live for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I think there were a couple of reasons that made me come to that decision. So the reason it took me a long time to come to that decision is because of my daughter. So me and my husband split up after, I think, 8 years.
But I'm really sorry to interrupt you. But before going there, I'm also a little bit curious about how were you able to convince people that you're gonna set up some businesses here? Because I'm also a little bit interested in the convincing part.
Actually, it wasn't that hard for me to set up businesses because I spoke English very well. And also, I think because I'm a woman, a lot of local people understood that by me opening up a business, it would improve tourism.
Yeah.
It would bring more people in.
Okay.
So it was condoned up to a certain level. The problem started when I was earning a little bit too much money.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because then you start
That's
to
the
get
problem.
some jealousy.
Yeah, of course.
Which is normal. I totally get it. In my defense, I always put money back into the community.
Yeah.
I never came to Dalian with the idea of I'm going to become rich here. Then I would have stayed in London. But I understand
you
it.
couldn't stop yourself, because if you lived in Amsterdam and London, and then what you're saying is that, okay, so this is in me. I'm a businesswoman, so I'm gonna do the same thing here. Otherwise, I'm gonna lose my mind, right?
Yeah.
So you followed.
That was literally it. I would have
Yeah.
lost my mind otherwise.
Yeah. So you did what you did. So no, I get it. But
It was very interesting because I'm someone that's also very much into design. So
Yeah.
I designed quite a number of houses and villas and apartments, etc. there, and built them, as well as designed boats. So I had this vision of doing something different. And so what happened was the first project I ever did there was I designed and built a new boat. So in Dalian, it's very normal to have boat tours. So tourists can go and kind of visit the area, see the area, by boat or go to the beach by boat. This is very kind of normal.
Yeah.
And so what these boats were all the same, super uncomfortable, very basic.
Yeah.
And so I had this vision of kind of creating something completely different. It would accommodate less people. It would be the same size, less people. But the seating would be very luxurious, very comfortable. There would be a toilet on board. There would be a bar on board, a kitchen that you
bar.
can cook in. Yeah. And so came up with the design. And I still remember to this day, all of the other captains, whilst we were building the boat, would come on a daily basis and laugh at what we were doing. Literally laugh, like at why are you ruining your boat? This is like a waste of money. Why would you do that? I set up a website, designed a website, created a website, did photography, etc., etc. Came up with the story of the brand, came up with the brand name, etc., etc. And then the following year, when the boat was in the water, it was the most successful boat in the whole area. Then what happened the following year is that a lot of other captains tried to copy the exact...
Imitate, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
But I liked it because I thought, you know what, I think this is great. It means that all of you are going to earn more money. It was never that...
No, I'm sure you're thinking this way, but this happens like again and again and again. I'm hearing this everywhere. So it's very unfortunate, but yeah, I got your idea. It's very
Yeah, but
cool.
I get it, because if you've never seen anything outside of what you see all your life, you're never necessarily going to think outside of the box and create and take the risk.
Maybe, like it doesn't have to be necessarily this way, but but anyway, I understand what you did. I think you did it really nicely. Yeah. So coming back to Amsterdam again.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So coming back this time, you mean?
Yeah. So you're back in Amsterdam. You decided to, after Corona, coming back to Amsterdam. And then this is a complete new life for you again.
Yes, and the decision wasn't quite that easy. And also the process of coming here was not quite that easy. So obviously me, in my innocence, thinking, I'm Dutch, it's going to be super easy for me to come back.
Yeah.
Very quickly discovered that actually it's not that easy. And a lot of things have changed, because although I've been coming back to Amsterdam on holidays during the past 25 years, I haven't lived here. So the idea I had of what Amsterdam is or what life is here was based on something from 25 years ago. I never really realized that. So
what changed? What changes did you notice?
I think I also changed. I think obviously when I was here, when I was living here, I was living here up till I was about 18 or 19. So I have completely changed several times during all those years.
Yeah.
So when I was living here, I was a student, I was working, I was studying, I had a certain group of friends around me. I'm no longer that person.
Yeah.
So everyone has moved on. I can't even remember half of the people's names, so I have no idea how to even find them. That happens with age. So coming back here, of course, I had my family. But I think my expectation of the family relation also changed, because of course living in Turkey, I think I was a little bit spoiled in that you have a very strong community around you. People are always, especially after a long time, and when you have those strong connections and friendships, etc., people are always on the lookout for you. People are always willing to help you. Money is never an issue.
Yeah.
You're there as a community looking after one another, which is one of the things I've loved so much about living in Turkey. In Holland, it's not quite the same.
No.
It's each to their own.
Yeah.
Everyone does their own thing. Even if you're a family, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to, help each other out if you're financially struggling or anything like that. It's like, no, not my problem.
Yeah.
There are some exceptions to the rule. There are some families that are not like that. But I think there's also a lot of people that are very much like that. I guess it's it's maybe a little bit more of a selfish way to live.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you have very clear boundaries,
Yeah.
and there's no disappointment.
No.
Because in Turkey, of course, it happens a lot where people lend each other money and then they get angry with each other because the other person never pays back. And, so I guess the Dutch way, at least you don't have the disappointment.
Yeah.
I would say I also hadn't realized quite how difficult it would be to find a house, to rent a house.
Yeah.
Me, in my innocence, I kind of assumed, well, I'm Dutch, surely I'm entitled to a house kind of thing.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, no, it doesn't work that way. You just get on the same list as everyone else. And these days, I think especially during and after the pandemic, I've realized that, there's a lot of people, foreign expats that have come to Holland because it's a good balance between working and living. Also, wages are fairly good. There's lots of bonuses to living here. So, I got on the same list as everyone else that was looking for a house to rent. And, no one cared about what I'd done in Dalian or like London or anything like that. So,
Super
it kind of...
individualistic, way
super.
of living here. So we're about to close the show very, very quickly, but very soon. But the last thing that I want to learn from you, also like hear your opinion, is that here I'm most of the time seeing, communications between people are kind of like a little bit superficial to me. But when you said it in Dalian, it was the kind of like, we were in a community, we were much more closer, and we were helping each other. So I'm presuming the communication were much more deeper than here.
Yeah, in Turkish they have a word. It's samimi or samimiyet, right?
Yeah.
Which would be translated as, I think, how would you translate it? Genuine?
Yeah, genuine.
Yeah?
Genuine.
I would say that in Holland, things are fairly superficial.
Yeah.
And someone the other day said to me that... when I was talking about me coming back and the differences between people in Turkey and people here, it takes a while for Dutch people to defrost.
Yeah.
She actually said defrost.
Yeah.
And I thought, actually that's a very good point. It takes quite a while for a Dutch person to build up trust with you or in you, even if you're Dutch. Unless maybe you come as a reference or you're a friend of a friend, et cetera, et cetera. Then it's a different situation. So I would say that, and that's for me as a Dutch person, but I would say that for someone that's foreign, it's most likely even more hard.
Yeah. So in your situation then, like how are you planning to readapt to a different culture after spending some time in a different country? Like how do you how do you think you can manage that? Or do you think you can manage that?
Yeah, I think I can manage. And I think one of the benefits I have these days is that, especially Amsterdam, but Holland in general, especially the big cities, have become very multicultural.
Yeah.
They were multicultural before, but nowadays, as you go into a restaurant or a patisserie or whatever, people speak to you in English.
Yeah.
Because the majority of people working there are foreign and speak English.
Yeah.
So I think that is a bonus. It's a plus that works in my favor. And also I think I'm someone that can adapt very fast and I'm very agile. I think that's the reason I've always been successful in the places I've been in. So in my case, I'm already feeling that I'm adapting quite well.
Yeah, it's a very important skill.
Yeah.
Adaptability.
Yeah, it's a very important skill. And I think especially coming to the Netherlands, especially if you're over a certain age. I think if you come here as a student, it's a completely different story.
Yeah.
But I think in my age group, you have to work a little bit harder for it. And you have to also, I think from your side, really invest in your friendships and your network with people.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen overnight.
No.
You have to realize that and you have to accept it.
Yeah.
And you're going to be the person that's going to put in much more of an effort than the Dutch person.
Okay.
As long as you can accept that, that's fine.
Yeah. So Anu, thank you so much coming to my
You're
show.
so welcome, Efe.
Yeah.
Thank you for inviting
So
me.
yeah, of course. So I'll see you later.
Okay.
For you. And if you love me,